So when it started, you just had ChatGPT and they opened up the API. So tools were popping up and people started implementing plugins for development environments for VS Code and JetBrains products. And back then, what was already all in all of those solutions is so-called tab completion. So if you start writing code, then the IDE, the development environment, would suggest a completion for that line or that variable or that statement. So you just start typing and then press tab and it would complete the rest for you.
Hi, my name is Dimitri Panici, and I'm a content creator, agency owner, and AI enthusiast. You're listening to the AI Agents Podcast, brought to you by JotForm, and featuring our very own CEO and founder, Ida Tank. This is the show where artificial intelligence meets innovation, productivity, and the tools shaping the future of work. Enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the AI Agents Podcast. In this episode, we have Juri Kuehn, the founder of Codelligence. How you doing, Yuri?
Hi, Dimitri. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. I've had the pleasure of, checking out everything you're doing at Codelligence, and I think it's really exciting in the age of AI agents to kind of do, coding now with AI, which kind of sounds, from my perspective, it's like codeception. It's like agentception. It's like next thing you know, we're gonna have agents making code agents that make code agents again. So anyways, jokes aside, really excited to chat about the product. Tell us a little bit about how you got into Codelligence and I guess going back a little bit, like your background before it even started.
Yeah, gladly. Yeah, I think you're right about agents writing agents, that the writing and running
Codeception.
agents. Yeah, codeception. Yeah. I'm on it. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm Yuri. I'm 43 years old. I started coding 30 years ago. This year is my anniversary. With 13, I started coding. And then I worked for startups and enterprises, German enterprises, built software as a software developer, tech lead, later CTO, built software that processes a lot of requests a second or has high security standards. For example, systems that would manage entry to power plants and so and or processing billions of euros for an energy company. So I did a couple of things. I was working for many companies and with a lot of developers. So I love software development and when AI kicked off, when ChatGPT came out, I understood that this will change everything and got fully into it. So
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me, like the world of AI, in the last couple of years has kind of made this natural shift. Like I was just only familiar. I wasn't even familiar with what an agent was until we started the podcast, to be quite frank. A little bit before that, I did my research as best I could, but it's really kind of just in my opinion, like transcended any of my wildest expectations in the last couple of years. Like for you, as someone who's familiar with the development world, like what do you feel about kind of the pace, things are going at?
it has been scary, I have to admit, because when I sat down with my developer friends, I told them this will change everything, that the AI will be coding what will be doing our job in 5 years from now. And we're on track, actually. We're on track. And so it was scary. I tried to help companies with different products. And I also, for myself as a founder, uh, it was really hard to keep up because we built a tool. Then a couple of months later, OpenAI, ChatGPT supported it. We built something else. And then, everything was moving so fast. And when ChatGPT came out, nobody knew really how to apply it, right? So it was
Very true.
new. And I mean, right now, research is being done on how AI works, what's happening inside. So even people who build the models still research how they work actually. So we do not fully understand what's happening inside and how to use it properly, yeah, safely and efficiently, and how to apply it to all the tasks in our businesses and everyday life. So we're still learning that. And as you mentioned, AI agents, I think it was about a year ago when the term popped up, right? Before that, we were speaking about AI automations and used different terms, and then AI agent nailed it, I think. And
I,
from
I I completely agree. Yeah, like AI agents was not in the purview of my mind at all. Like we started the podcast, and to be quite frank, I made a joke there, but I was serious. Like I was a big proponent of AI. I had done a lot of content about many AI companies, many AI products. And when I was asked to make a podcast about the AI agents that are out there, I was like, what the heck is an AI agent? When I was asked the question, I'll be completely transparent. I don't think anybody knew. Like if anyone told you when I was asked was like June of last year was like when Idekin first brought it up. I was like, what is I don't know what that is. Right. And it's amazing. Like we've gone from large language model text generation, like GPT 3.5 that did a decent job of like, in retrospect, writing things, to now agentic workflows and not autonomous fully agents, but really, really, really strong. I would just say agents that that can do so many different things. First it was marketing, and now, just to get into what your product does, like you're essentially a coding AI agent company, so to speak, right? You bring AI agents to like Copilot for code, right?
yeah. Yeah, so what we realized is that uh so what what you can observe that is that coding is a major thing for the model companies, for the large language model companies. They they pursue to build models that can code very well. That's a very high priority for them, because they know that if they are able to create a model that is coding really, really well, they can apply it to the model itself so it can start improving itself, right? So they can get ahead of everyone else. So that's why there are pretty good coding tools, and we actually initially started also in the space like to compete with GitHub Copilot,
Sure. Yeah.
but but wanted to bootstrap, and well, that wasn't the best idea. But then we focused on automations around the coding itself, because in companies where teams of developers working on one product, developers spend only 1/3 of their time or less actually working on the product. Everything else is overhead. Like they need to make code reviews, write documentation, answer questions, do some research, write change logs, fix some issues, or even analyze some issues. And and a lot of that AI can do very, very well by now. And coming back to the pace statement, so the AI development was really, really fast in the last 2 years, I would say. But I see that now the models, if you take a look at GPT, for example, GPT-3 was a sensation, but it could do, for example, you could already build chat agents, chatbots with it. It was all
Yes.
right for that. Yeah.
Immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. But then for more complex use cases, it wasn't accurate enough, and it was too expensive and too slow.
Mm-mm.
GPT-4 was incredible. It was a big jump in quality. So you could actually start building complex stuff on top of it. But now, not that much happened. Like the next jump to GPT-5 is,
I'll be honest, that was disappointing.
yeah,
Everyone was expecting that to be something incredible. It was not that good as a jump.
yes, yes. So what they get really better at is to understand human intent. So your prompting skills do not need to be as good as a year ago, for example. So the models understand better what you actually want because they had a lot of training data collected from ChatGPT. So they know, okay, if the user enters this, then actually he wants something else. They trained the model in a way that it understands intents better. It got a lot cheaper, it got faster. The tool calling is more reliable. And a year ago, you could provide like 6, 7 tools. And if you provide more, then the model would confuse them. And right now, the limits gone up. So the utility of the models is now a lot higher. But the, let's say, intelligence is more or less like it's a lot better, of course, than a year ago. But the jump is not like from GPT-3 to GPT-4. And now what I see is that this model development is stalling. It's not it's not the main thing that everyone is focusing on right now, but they're going into the implementation phase, and this is with the agents. So they provide integrations like ChatGPT. You can use Zapier. You can integrate with Zapier with Google Mail right out of ChatGPT. So yeah, now they're going into the businesses and providing everything to implement the use cases.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned something about like you mentioned a good point about how you add so many tools and then they'd start getting confused and there's like too much stuff. Like, could you speak to, just from a coding perspective, right? As the products have continued to expand and get better, larger context windows, larger reasoning capabilities, what is it like in the coding world? And maybe explain that trajectory a little bit more, because everyone is probably at the consumer level decently aware of, you got XYZ product, whether it be Claude, ChatGPT, etc. They understand things better. They're able to do more complex requests when you're asking it for things. What was that like same progression like for code AI? Because
Yeah,
I don't think I actually know this progression very well. I just know that like everybody uses Claude Code now or whatever.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah. So when it started, you just had ChatGPT, and they
mhm.
opened up the API, so tools were popping up, and people
Okay.
started implementing plugins for development environments for VS Code and JetBrains products. And back then, um, what was already all in all of those solutions is so-called tab completion. So if you start writing code, then the IDE, the development environment, would suggest a completion for that line or that variable or that statement. So you just start typing and then press tab, and it would complete the rest for you. And GitHub Copilot, even before the ChatGPT release, had already an auto completion because they had their own model that wasn't as strong as ChatGPT, but still they were specialized on code, so you could, as a developer, you could start writing code, and it would
Sure.
suggest a whole block of code for you. It wouldn't
Okay.
just it wouldn't just complete a variable name or a method name, so a function name that you would call, but it
Yeah.
would complete a whole algorithm. For example, you want to iterate over your customer list and then just get the names in a certain format, and then you just start typing and maybe write a comment above it and then just press tab and it will complete the whole block for you, which is a big thing because you don't have to write everything by hand. But not everyone was using it because it wasn't also like super great, right? So, but then when ChatGPT came out, they opened up their API, and a lot of startups and projects popped up, and they built on the API of OpenAI and started to implement also this kind of solution for developers. So developers can start typing, and it helps them to try to understand the intent of the developer and complete a whole section of code. So in best case, you
Hmm.
just start typing and then press tab complete, tab complete. So you would save a lot of time. And now when GitHub partnered with OpenAI, they're now using their model, and it's working a lot better. Although Cursor is they do a better job. But if you look at the solutions, you have the Copilot, GitHub Copilot, you have Cursor, you have Windsurf, you have Claude Code. Those that yield the best results use the Claude family models.
Right, because Cursor,
So
if I'm not mistaken, defaults to Claude.
absolutely yes. And we're constantly trying if there's a better model. For example, there are models. Google is really fast, so it's a bit annoying if you're programming and you need to wait until the model finishes.
Absolutely, yes.
So I'm looking forward when they become like really really fast. But none can match with Claude Code and
And the
Claude.
standard at the moment is the
Yes,
Opus 4.1 model, right?
yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, but also even the Sonnet model, it has this thinking mode, and it's also really, really powerful. And so there was a major shift, just to complete this one. There
Yeah.
was then a major shift from the step completion to agentic coding, which means that Claude Code offers agentic coding. You do not edit code in the editor anymore. So you do not type the code yourself. You just explain what you want to achieve, and the AI, in this case Claude Code, would write the code. So this is the next step of development, agentic coding, and here we are.
And I guess just to kind of speak to it for I'll ask one more question about practically how it works, and then two, I'd love to kind of get into for the average user kind of what it looks like. So, Claude Code released subagents recently. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you speak a little bit to like what that process and situation is like? Because I'm, from an agentic standpoint, I'm curious what your thoughts are on it, and if you from a technical standpoint can explain that to us a little bit better.
Yeah, so we have different directions of advancements in the AI
Yes.
space.
Mm-hmm.
So one is like the general intelligence. How well can the model understand what we're aiming at and then produce an accurate response? And having a large context window. And a new thing is with agentic AI, how long can a model or how long can an AI agent or AI system perform on its own. And for example, Claude Code is an agentic coding system, so you can type in a specification for a whole application and then tell it to use sub agents, and then it will make a plan on how to implement the system and then spawn sub agents. So concurrently, multiple agents will work on building your application. It doesn't work perfectly. So you need to carefully describe your task in a way so it can split it in a way that the agents do not interfere with each other. So, but I think that will get a lot better soon. And so Claude Code is able to turn a specification into full application. And there are also another solutions like Lovable, for example. You heard
Mm,
maybe of Lovable or
absolutely.
Replit.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I've used it. It's good.
and it's really, really good. So yeah, so for example, Lovable is really good at building UIs. And Replit just released a new coding agent that is capable of building also whole applications. And they um, they advertise with 200 minutes of autonomous coding, so that the agent can can pro- produce code for 200 minutes straight without without needing human interference or going off track. If it starts hallucinating and then building something crazy, then that's not what we want. So um, Claude Code is capable of coding for a long time using those sub agents, and it has a lot of features that a developer can use to make it work for a long time and implement a complex specification. And there are also those specialized coding agents like Lovable and Replit and V0, and they, for example, Lovable is really good at building UIs, so you can you can build whole applications yourself. And I walked a couple of people through it that are not developers at all, and they've built complete websites with login and data storage. So a lot of developer tasks can be done today by someone who is not a developer at all.
Yeah. I mean that to me is the most incredible thing about what's happened the last couple months. Like I've put together some stuff with just like Lovable and Claude Code, and like a GitHub sync between the two, and just fixing stuff in repositories. Like there are even third party tools out there right now. It's like this one in beta that I was testing out where you can basically have a remote terminal, so you can like run up multiple instances of Claude Code. It's got a nice interface, and it's crazy. I don't know how to code, but I was able to put something together that was functional. And I guess I'm just curious for you as a founder of someone in this industry, like what are you guys doing so from a unique standpoint to really stand out, right? And how are you maybe utilizing these different models in your own product and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I think we're at a time where it's not really clear how AI agents will be used in software development teams, like in teams. As we 2 years ago didn't really know how to use AI for coding. I
Hmm.
think some people already had this idea that there will be agentic coding and you just put in a specification and you would have a terminal. You will not use your development environment anymore. Or people are building now new development environments that just monitor the changes of the AI. So some things are we we experiment with different solutions, and then we see what of it works. And I think what's special about us is that I bring quite some experience from the software industry in the software industry, and had the opportunity to work for so many companies and see that they basically have all the same struggles. And I see that um, a lot of solutions are being made, but my learning from the last 2 years is that code, the value of code is going to zero because you just can say what you need and then the AI will produce it. So I think what's unique about us is that we're open source, and our agents integrate into customers' diverse environments because every team produces code, but one use GitHub or the GitLab and Jira, and they have a little bit different workflows. They
Yeah.
work in agile way, but they have different setups. Some have big DevOps operations, others don't. And if you get the developers to work faster, the drive the productivity of the developers higher, then you also need to look after the testers and the product owners and DevOps because they get pressure from the developers, because if just one part gets more productive, then you need to keep up with the rest of the team. And I think that what we offer is with our agents, with our open source agents, is what teams need to complement the code generation and code editing in a team. Because
Mm.
what we offer is agents that do the grind work around the code, like code reviews, changelog generation, issue and error log analysis. So things around the actual building of software.
And where you're seeing other companies kind of lack in that regard, right? It seems like obviously you're like a solution where others are missing it. So like why are they, whether it be GitHub Copilot, stuff like that, why are they not doing this type of stuff?
Already? Yeah, because it's so new, and we uh, we have our sales operation runs on LinkedIn. So and
Okay.
we try to speak to a lot of CTOs,
Mm-hmm.
and so what I see is if you have a larger team like 10, 20, 30, 40 developers, then things move slowly. If you introduce, for example, GitHub Copilot, like many companies use GitHub Copilot because it's you can you can get it from Microsoft, and in terms of security and data privacy, things are easier if you work with Microsoft than with Anthropic or OpenAI directly. And so the adoption is very slow. And you might think that developers would embrace AI for development and you know, would kill it, but it's not the case. So not some, most developers
Okay.
struggle to get really productive with it. They are so used. Yeah,
Really? That's
yeah,
actually kind of shocking.
yeah.
So you're
Uh,
basically making it, just to restate what you're saying, people who don't know how to code might actually be more productive with these tools than people who do know how to
100%.
code. Really?
Yes.
No shoot.
Yes.
That's very counterintuitive to me. Talk more about that.
Yes, because so if you think about a regular developer day, yeah, you go into office, chit chat a little bit, get your coffee, then work a bit, then you have your daily. In software development, in if you have an agile project, which most people do nowadays, then you have your daily, then you work on your code, then you
Yeah.
answer some questions, so you go to work, and then you have your routine, your habits, right? You go there and you do things the way you've done them the last couple of years ago. And now your CTO comes in and says, or maybe one of the developers says, hey, we really should start using GitHub Copilot or something. And the CTO, for example, then goes, okay, we need to check with legal and so on. So, okay, everything's clarified. GitHub Copilot licenses are bought.
Yeah.
So developers can start using it. But then only few, and that I don't know why, only few companies really buy proper training for their people. So they assume, yeah, they're developers, they will figure it out. But you can read
Yeah.
online. You would
That's
also
yeah.
assume that, no?
This is actually a fair point. This is a very common like business mispractice though that happens, right? Like people make the assumption that a certain person may be able to do something because they're technical enough or whatever it is, but it's like, no, you gotta implement how this is going to be used. You can't just assume they're going to get it. Yeah.
And so what happens is that developers are usually quite under pressure. So the product owners and whoever runs the department or the company is always asking when will it be done? And then you have the bugs coming in and you need to fix them without breaking your schedule. So usually developers, especially in agile, where you have to report every day and you have your sprints every 2 weeks you need to deliver. So they are under a lot of pressure actually. And they don't have time to get really into it. And after full day of coding and messing with code, actually many developers, when they come home, they don't really want to touch it again. So no,
Yeah.
not all, like there are such and such developers, but then maybe they watch a video or try it a little bit. But actually, for me, it took me about 2 to 3 months full time working with AI until I really understood how it works and how I can get out something out of it, something valuable. So and I thought it would be easy, but actually if you start doing it and it's not producing what you like, and you can read all over the internet about it. A lot of people are saying, yeah, it's overhyped, it's just not working, and they have typed in something and then it didn't come out as expected, and so they blame the AI for it. But it's a tool, and every tool uh, like has if you buy a saw and want to bring down a tree, then there's a way to use it, otherwise it won't work well. So it's also a tool, and it doesn't have all the buttons and the inputs, but you still need to know how to use it. And I think that many underestimate. And so things are going very slowly, and people are just still struggling with introducing a copilot, and they're not really thinking about the next step, to automate the things around. And I think this is coming now.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a very fair point, and it's a common thing across all verticals and industries, right? And maybe people just have this same blanket assumption because it's the smartest of the AI. I'm not sure. With content generation or research or whatever it is, if you look up questions, or if you, write questions and prompts incorrectly into any of these models, smarter they're going to get is going to help this a little bit, but there's still going to be a level of prompt engineering that's really needed that people don't get. Like, what are some of the main drawbacks you're seeing? Because I've read up on it a decent bit, and it seems like if you don't provide a very detailed spec sheet, things can go wrong pretty quickly for a lot of this coding.
What are the drawbacks, you say?
Well, I would say like what are some of the examples of, you know, people using it and it going wrong, right? Like, for example, I've heard that if you don't provide it with very detailed like spec sheets, it can go not in the right direction. And then that's why people are like, why didn't it code right? It's like, well, you didn't really tell it what to do. You sort of told it what to do, and it wasn't that detailed.
Yeah. So the model doesn't know anything about you. It doesn't know anything about it. So, or what you're dealing with. So I think the hard thing is to treat a model like a complete stranger, because people are typing in something like, okay, please write me a piece of code to an algorithm for something, for sorting or whatever, and then what it spits out doesn't match their expectation. But they don't understand that the AI model is trained on so much code, and it knows so many variations, and it's trained to always reply. So it won't tell you, I don't know how to do it, or I don't know what you mean by that. It's not trained to ask questions, but it's trained to generate responses. So then people enter something, and then they're a little bit disappointed. But it's exactly as you said. You need to provide context. You need, in the best case, to tell something about yourself, about the company. Hey, I'm a developer at Codeligence, and we're building AI agents for non-coding tasks. And I'm currently working on this agent. So you explain it. You can explain it to the model as you would explain to a person. And then ask your request. Put your request into it.
Yeah, that's key, I think, across all industry, right? Like, there's no replacement for having conversation with people. And, you know, people is one thing, but in essence, these AI agents are conversational, and that means you have to have a conversation with it in order for it to have the context, right? And if you walked up to somebody who was like, I want a well-functioning table, like, component, right? For like whatever product you're building, and then they responded with like, you know, they whipped out like a physical table that you like put food on, you'd be like, oh, you're right. I didn't tell you that. I meant like for this Notion clone tool, I would like a table that functions the way that Notion does with filters and sorting and, you know, and adding new rows and deleting and etc. Yeah. So that's the funny thing. People just make assumptions like that. So yeah. Sorry.
And I think that's the experience part. If you work with AI models for a long time, then you start to understand what they understand. And then you start to understand what context you need to provide. Right. And I think one thing is worth mentioning, also the rise of context engineering. So you, in the beginning of this year, you could download a ton of prompt engineering guides, but now with AI agents, you have context engineering. So you not only need to understand the model, but AI agents usually have workflows. So they automate something, and they have multiple steps to achieve something. And for each step, you need a different context, because at every step, the AI starts at zero. Every step of the workflow, it starts at zero. So you need to explain everything again. Of course, you provide then the history, and there are a lot of techniques on providing a proper context. But this is like a new, also a new skill set, context engineering.
Yeah, it's very important. I mean, like there's a bunch of, tools that are out there right now and they're great, but I've used Relevance, if you heard of that one. Relevance AI.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one's awesome, but really makes good like improvements to it is honestly, I don't know if you've seen it, but like the context windows are getting bigger and the ability for these agents to search up documents and stuff. So I'll add knowledge bases to it and then I can give specific, since it has a longer like runtime capability, I'll tell it to, okay, for this portion of the task, look at this knowledge base, get your answer from there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the more context you add, the better it becomes. And, obviously to talk about you guys for a second, because we are getting close to the end of the episode, and we really quite haven't, we talked about the industry, which is really great. So everyone knows what you're talking about. If you had to give, a shout out to what you feel like is the coolest type of stuff you're doing at Codelligence, I know you mentioned the things that you can do for teams and solving problems. Just tell us a little bit more about what you feel like is the number one thing you'd like everyone to take away that your company can do and that you'd like them to check out.
Maybe I can share my screen for a second.
I think that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me know if you can see it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it's very simple actually. So the agents are open source, so you can go on the website dev-agents.ai, and we currently have a couple of use cases we have implemented. Of course, every team is a little bit different, but there are a couple of tasks that are there in every team, and if one of those use cases is something that you spend a lot of time with, you can just go here, you start a setup wizard, you can configure your avatar and just say what of type of infrastructure you have. Do you use GitHub, GitLab, Azure DevOps? What model are you using? OpenAI, Azure, Bedrock, whatever it is. And then the agent will provide you the configuration and the Docker command to run it. So it's really easy to start with. And then you have, for example, if you use Slack and use the agent in Slack, then you can just say provide impact analysis on PR3. And because it's connected to our GitLab and also has access to the code base, it's able to provide those functions and give the analysis, and then I can ask it to generate change logs or ask it questions about the code base. So this can be integrated into workflows easily. But if you integrate it into Slack or Teams, we saw that the adoption is really good. So, for example, here you have for a change, you get testing recommendations, what was changed in the code, and then what needs to be tested to make sure that nothing is broken. Yeah. So,
I really like that it's in Slack, by the way.
Yeah, we saw that people are in Slack or Teams anyways, and
that's very smart.
Yeah, if you use it from there, it's transparent. You don't have a lot of issues with some abuse, and
No, I like that a lot. I think that's a very good, Slack apps and stuff like that. And I was going to ask this question, but I think, it pretty much proves out what my comment/question was going to be. I always like to ask companies like yours, like, well, how are you going to make sure that this is easy to implement into somebody's workflow, right? A lot of people will end up making their own product, and like, kudos to them, but then they end up putting it somewhere where it's like its own thing. And very naturally, by putting it in Slack, I feel like it makes the ecosystem a lot easier to digest, you know? So that's a great call on your part.
Yes. Yes, I think so too. And also giving it an approachable identity also. We saw that
Betty.
it's also, yeah. You can call it whatever you like. So in this case it's Betty, and yeah. And the adoption, it helps with the adoption.
Well, yeah, this is incredible. So everyone just, last thing I'll say before we kind of close it out is thank you again, Yuri, for being on the episode. And please, everyone go to Codeligence.com. It's spelled code, Ligence.com. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Yuri.
Thanks for having me, Dimitri. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure to you as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to this episode, watching it. Please make sure to leave a like, comment down below. And also, don't forget to subscribe on all the different podcast platforms. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.